what I wanted to ask you is what has been your journey over the last 3 months? I know it's been a very difficult time and it continues to be because cases aren't coming in control even now in the two major cities, major markets that you are in, besides other parts of India. What's been the journey like, and what have been your major challenges in terms of whether with your employees or your hotels? Tell us a little bit about it.
We've obviously started to see the impact of COVID-19 first in our hotels in China. Given that Marriott has a large number of hotels there, we obviously started to see some signs of that. And I think by the time we got to India, we sort of got a sense of what could potentially happen. So we had a very good January, February, and probably the first 10 days of March. And as we looked past that, suddenly we started to see this change in patterns where there were large scale cancellations, and there was a lot of business on the books that started to either get cancelled, and new business coming in started to fall quite dramatically. So we started to see the impact then, and I think even at that point there was a sense that this would be a couple of months and that things would maybe start to come back. And I think this has now continued to play out. I think we know a few things for certain now. One of them is that India is in a very different time period in the COVID life cycle as compared to other parts of the world. So there is clearly a lag, there is a delay, and it looks like we're going to see the peak of this sometime in July, maybe towards mid to end of July, based on everything that I continue to read and looking at the current numbers that we have. So I think it was the government putting the lockdown on the 23rd of March and then extending that sort of helped slow it down for a while. But now we're going to see the peak of it. So I think that is something we can kind of predict to some extent. But the biggest challenge, if you ask me, through all of this has been that there is a great degree of uncertainty around the duration of this crisis. And we are not able to make any decisions with any degree of decisiveness because of this uncertainty. So you continue to make decisions, keeping in mind the outlook and the perspective that you have at that point in time, and that could very well change. So that has been a huge challenge for us through the crisis. We also are very concerned about the current state of the economy and the resultant, slowdown we're going to see, maybe even a recession coming around the corner. And while this is hitting most sectors, most of the sectors as we know them, travel and tourism has been significantly impacted. So as we saw this come through, we took several steps to rationalize the business. We shut down a number of our hotels where we didn't see business coming in. The hotels that we kept operational were kept with very limited inventory, so maybe one or two floors of guest rooms, and really in-room dining. We didn't have restaurants, spas, swimming pools, bars, any of that open. We really curtailed our operations in order to cut down on expenses. We shut hotels to cut down on expenses, and also to keep people safe. I think the emphasis when we say rationalize the business was not just on this. It was also to keep our stakeholders, away from COVID-19 and potentially have less exposure. We also know that hotels are big buildings usually with diverse operations, and scaling them down really helps you to save utility costs. So that was the whole purpose of that. As far as our associates went, we introduced and we still have in place certain measures that we've had to take on a temporary basis, whereby we have encouraged our team members to take leave without pay, to try to rationalize that business. But more importantly, we also took steps to see what we could do to ensure that we continue to stay connected with our consumers. and also started to look out for new business opportunities to the extent possible. So one of the things that I would like to point out here is we've begun to pitch for a business where this Vande Bharat, for example, where the people are being repatriated back to India. We continue to build on that business. So we are seeing a lot of one-time business opportunities as people are being repatriated back. They need to stay in a hotel, quarantine for 7 days, so on. We also began to do takeouts and home deliveries of food, something that we never did in a big way before. So under the Marriott On Wheels vertical, we launched a program whereby we began to try delivery of food to homes of people in certain cities. We started in Mumbai and in Pune, and then we've now grown that to about 40 hotels. We've also announced a tie-up with certain other partners like Swiggy, who can ensure that the delivery is done. We went out and did a lot of work for the community as well. And again, a number of our hotels in Mumbai, in Lucknow, in Bhopal, for example, are working to house and support relief, and provide relief, but also house medical staff and personnel from the government who are engaged in fighting COVID-19. So we're providing that support. We've done a lot in our local communities to the extent that we possibly can. And I think our associates have done a great job with that. We've distributed food packets, dry ration packets, hygiene kits, as we call them, to local communities to try to do what we can in order to support those communities, especially around the hotels that we operate in. So a lot of time has been spent engaging the various stakeholders. When you look at how things look from a future perspective, I think it's very clear now that international travel is still a while away. The more immediate focus will be on the domestic consumer. Around 85 to 90% of Marriott's business in India is the domestic consumer. And there will clearly be a pivot towards that consumer. So how we see the recovery panning out, we really see as a first step, I think we need to ensure that there is confidence in a customer's ability to travel. The first step is about building up that confidence, and we are attempting to do that, obviously, by launching, cleaning protocols. We've launched a project called MeCare, which is our commitment to cleanliness.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I've been hearing a lot about the MeCare program, which I think is a global program, right? Which has been rolled out in all your hotels across the world, if I'm not mistaken. Or is it specific to India?
Well, there are some elements of it that are specific to India. Obviously, given the fact that we operate a little bit differently in India, and also we have to stay, well within the directives of the guidelines mandated by the local authorities here. So, keeping that in mind, we've got what we call the Global Cleanliness Council, which has kind of put together the broader framework of this. And then there are certain nuances that are specific to India. But essentially, what does this mean? It's really about creating the right environment for people to come back to a hotel and for people to be feeling safe as they come into a hotel. So right from the time that you enter with your temperature being checked, to the time to get to your room, there's a real emphasis on making sure that we do a few things. One, we try to be as contactless as possible. Number two, any form of contact has to be minimized and has to be properly contained. People you are interacting with have to be in the proper personal protective equipment. We are activating technology now to make sure that you can engage with the hotel team via technology. So you can check in and check out, for example, via your mobile phone. Order your food and beverage in the guest room via your phone. You can order pretty much, put in any request or anything that you need in the hotel through your mobile phone. So we are moving in that space where we are digitizing a lot of the transactions and trying to go contactless. We're going to stagger arrivals into the outlet. We're going to make sure that there is more space between seatings. We're going to modify service to make sure that again there is an element of you having to engage less. For example, you'll be able to get the menu on your mobile phone, right, and order. So those elements are being brought in, but I think fundamentally the customer will decide. And we just want to make sure that the customer has the confidence that should they decide to go with one of the two, they are available to them. Our belief is that the overwhelming number of customers will lean towards the option of staying limited in terms of interaction in the immediate aftermath of COVID-19 as they begin to travel. And as confidence gets reestablished, we believe it'll sort of change again. Now, coming back to what I was saying, I think first step is confidence, and we're doing everything around care and commitment to clean and communicating that. The second thing we're doing around it is we are going to our Marriott Bonvoy program members, who approximately comprise of about 65 to 70% of our guests that stay at our hotel. And we are ensuring that we have flexible booking policies so that these folks are able to come back and stay at our hotels and are incentivized to some extent to stay at the hotel. So in that regard, what we've done very specifically is we have ensured that we have put in place and actively communicated a flexible policy, because what we are saying is that as we continue to engage with customers, travel partners, and bookers, we are saying to them that we are adapting our cancellation policies and are committed to ensuring that you experience flexibility with your hotel bookings. So for Marriott Bonvoy members who travel quite a bit, as I said, and comprise about 70% of our guests that stay at the hotels, we understand that when they get back on the road, that their points and their status is going to be very important to them. So as far as points go, we provided ample time for them to redeem their points. And the expiration of points will be paused until February 2021. In terms of their status extension, the status earned in 2019 is going to be extended to February of 22. Right? So again, this is really about incentivizing people to consider traveling again. We've launched a program at the beginning of June, which is essentially on Marriott.com. So we're offering discounted rates for future bookings. You have to make your booking in the month of June, and then you can stay anytime between June and next year's June, right? So you've got a 12-month window. You're getting preferential rates. And the best part about it is you can change your dates for booking at any point in time and as many times as you want. Right? So if I was to book one of my hotels in Mumbai and currently put in a date of, say, 15th of July for 2 nights, I could change that to a future date as many times as I wanted, provided it is within the next 12 months. So it's really about establishing that confidence. That once the confidence is established, I think the next thing will be people, once they decide to travel, will gravitate towards brands that they can trust. Right? You're more likely to go with a brand that you know well, that you have a connection with, and that will not compromise on safety, sanitation, and hygiene, which is going to be prime in the immediate aftermath. So again, that's where the commitment to clean comes in, and that's where I think we have put in considerable amount of time and resources in terms of listening to what our customers want and trying to make that available for them. A large part of that program also covers the matter of how we're going to get our employees back to work. Right? Because it's one thing to get the guest part of the program right. It's ever so important to get the associate part of it right, because these are the people who are going to be servicing the guests and interacting with them. So the MeCare program, as we call it here in India, covers both those aspects. And the idea is really to provide a safe, hygienic, well sanitized environment so that exposure is limited to the extent possible. So that is the game plan. Now, talking to our customers, as I mentioned before, it's going to be a pivot towards the domestic market. It's going to be essential business travel that we think will pick up first, and a large part of leisure. We see drive-to locations or drive-to destinations being the first to be accessible because people will find that they're quite comfortable getting into their own car with their family and driving to the hotel directly. So we believe drive-to locations will be the first to come through.
Okay.
And those will be for leisure and for essential business travel.
Okay.
We also believe that the possibility of the entire population traveling immediately is not going to happen. I think there'll be a certain demographic that feels that they are better equipped to deal with it from an age perspective or from their health perspective or immunity perspective. And those are more likely to be the ones that are going to travel first, followed by the others. Talking to our customers, the large MICE conventions groups, that looks to be a while away, to be honest. I don't think
what do you think would there wouldn't be any revival anytime soon in the MICE segment? MICE segment is very big for Marriott, hasn't it? The MICE and the wedding segments was quite big for your group in India.
It is. It's a big segment. The wedding segment, as we've said before, we're already seeing inquiries start to come in. The inquiries that were the confirmed bookings that were there, we're seeing some date changes, but largely we are seeing that the weddings are going to be smaller, and maybe we'll have less functions attached to them as compared to what they did in the past. But people are still going to get married. People are still going to have small events, and the important thing is going to be to say, how do we, provide people, future customers, with an understanding of how these events will take place. So we are working and have already created a lot of collateral that is able to take a consumer through a virtual journey that shows them how their wedding, for example, can be planned at one of our hotels, right? Because that's what people want to understand. How will the seating work? What is the capacity? So we had to revisit all of these standards because local laws by state vary, and we need to make sure that we sort of comply with all of that. So I think I'm very confident people will continue to get married, but they won't obviously have guests in the numbers that they used to have in the past. Those numbers will be reduced. The number of events that they have for the wedding may reduce, but weddings will still happen. One thing we expect to see in weddings, and this is interesting, there used to be a lot of Indian weddings that went overseas. We are starting to see some requests now for these weddings to take place in India, where they're looking to buy out the entire resort or hotel, and basically, have the entire space for their customers. So I think weddings is certainly a channel or a segment of business that will continue to come through as soon as hotels are allowed to open. I don't think
what are the markets that you will see, the weddings, when you say buyout of hotels or resorts, are they looking at, say, doing it in Bombay or Delhi or Bangalore or whatever, or are they ready to even travel outside the city limits for it, like to one of your resort properties?
So the buyout piece is typically for resort hotels. Typically, that's the way it works. As far as the locations like Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, more specifically Delhi, Bombay go, we are seeing a lot of requests, especially in Delhi and Calcutta, come through. They are mostly for our hotels in the city, and these are for smaller events for about 50 people, where the family from within the city comes into the hotel, has the event, and then concludes the function. But when it comes to buyouts, we're seeing most of those at our resort locations. Interest in those in places like Mussoorie, Mahabaleshwar, Goa, Rajasthan, etc. So Marriott on Wheels, one is the opportunity to deliver to your home. There's a tie-up, as I said, with Swiggy and one with Zomato that we've announced in that regard. Plus, we do our own delivery. The other part about it is catering to offices. We are beginning to see that as people start coming back to offices after a considerable period of time, many of these offices are operating at reduced occupancy levels.
Okay.
And in many cases, they really don't want to have their cafeterias operational. So what they tend to do is they tend to ask whether we could supply them with packed boxes for different meals, individual boxes. So Marriott on Wheels is going to be able to do that. There's a significant outreach we are making in this segment to see whether we can generate some interest there. And we've been very successful in locations like Bangalore, Pune, and in some of the tier 2 markets as well. So we're starting to see some of that movement. I think as offices continue to open, that will improve and increase. And then under Marriott on Wheels, this was essentially something that was about a food truck. So that will also continue as a third vertical.
Yeah. I remember the food truck in New Delhi. I'd seen it in New Delhi property.
Right.
So that's only in Delhi, or is it in other parts of the?
So we did a food truck that went across the country. It went to eight different locations.
Wow. Okay.
As far up as Lucknow down to Madurai. So we covered, and Kochi. So we covered a lot of traction there, and we kind of went that and then took that through. But that was about a year ago. There were plans to do another one this year, which unfortunately hasn't materialized yet.
So I wanted to know is you work with several owners in India across the world. What has been the the partnership contours now at this point of time? What are the pulls and pushes? How have you been dealing with that kind of challenge?
So there has been considerable engagement. As you correctly pointed out, the vast majority of our hotels in India are owned by our partners. We manage them for them. This is not all hotels, but the vast majority of them.
A vast majority of them. Apologies. Yeah.
And obviously, with business really not translating into any bottom lines for them, there is considerable stress on the business. So in times like this, I think as an operator, we have had a number of meetings with the owners, continuous engagement with them, and tried to work through reducing our costs. So rationalizing the business, as I said about at the start, was done in complete partnership with the owners. Everything around that was discussed to them, and so have our attempts at reviving the business been. But we have been talking to the owners about various aspects of the business in terms of how do we repurpose the business in some cases, how do we right size it in some cases, how do we really look at the future and say, how do we build up to the business is likely to come in. So we've been working very closely and staying very, very engaged with them because at the end of the day, there's significant debt in this industry. It's a debt-intensive industry. And obviously, we have to do everything that we possibly can as responsible partners to make sure that our owners are able to service the debt. So we've been working extremely closely with them. And one thing I can tell you is that while we can't predict today how long this will last, I think we know that it will get behind us, and the travel and tourism industry will rebound. It's a resilient industry. We've seen it bounce back from a lot, and again, we have an excellent partnership in place with our owners. So we've taken a number of actions in conjunction with them to support them through this time.
Okay. And what are the markets that you expect to open initially, given that you have seen the trajectory of the way of the disease over the last 3 months? Bangalore, I think, has opened quite well by now. Kerala is also pretty much open. Can you tell me a bit about, which markets you think will bounce back first and why?
It's hard to predict which cities will actually open first. You're right, Bangalore and Kochi have opened up. I'm hearing that some other cities may, but it's very volatile. So it's hard to predict. But I'll tell you this: what I will tell you is tier 2 markets and resort locations will likely pick up first. And that's simply because in terms of tier 2 markets, the business into those hotels is typically local business and domestic business. They don't rely much on international travelers. So those markets are likely to rebound quicker. Resort destinations are likely to rebound first as well, because I think a lot of people will like to get to these locations after being away from them for so long. So our prediction is tier 2 and resort destinations will obviously rebound quicker as compared to tier 1 markets in the initial period. And especially now, when you look at how we are unfortunately positioned, some of our tier 1 markets are still in the depth of this, very deep in this crisis. So it'll take a while before the big metros come around. But it's good to see what's happening in Bangalore. I think there seems to be some good traction in the last week since the market has opened up.
You mentioned environment. Big hotels by their very nature, tend to be leave a huge carbon footprint. While hotels have been trying to kind of eliminate things like plastic from within their properties. In a larger perspective, what would this mean for big groups, big hotels, several key hotels?
You're right. There are the changes you make at a hotel, right? You say, I'm going to eliminate plastic bottles and little plastic shampoos in the rooms, plastic bottles of bathroom amenities, and so on. But it's really about fixing this as a planning stage. So when you look at Marriott, there is a clear commitment of incorporating changes to our designs, changes to how we support the hotels from a operating perspective when it comes to heat, light, power, water usage, etc. So there is a committed attempt to reduce our carbon footprint that starts at the very inception of the design stage and then carries on through construction and operations, right? So that is something that the company is doing. There is obviously the piece around educating our associates and our customers about the need to do the right thing for the environment. That is a whole separate vertical there. And then the third thing is making sure that we do everything on the property. I can tell you there have been a number of hotels that have now completely eliminated plastic bottles and moved to glass. Marriott has made an announcement that they're going to move away from the little bathroom amenities, the wet amenities. And today, honestly, if you go into one of our rooms, you'll be hard pressed to find any plastic there, right? So all of these changes are very much taking place, and it's really about making sure that your food and beverage and your products in the hotel are sustainably sourced as well. Right from everything that is being consumed in your hotels and served up to customers.
Yeah. So you talked about the supply chain. Would your hotels also be looking at more local sourcing than getting things? Given the fact that we have to be very careful about supply chains, and also when you spoke about environment, what would your supply chains be like in terms of particularly for F&B and a lot of other products too?
We've continued to look over some time now to get great local partners. I think now as we've seen advances made in this field, we've begun to be able to source some good products locally. So if there is a great product that's available locally and homegrown, of course we use that. We want the food to travel less for sure. More farm to plate as much as we possibly can. But at the same time, they need to be ingredients of the right quality and they need to be available consistently. Right. So while there is a big focus on seasonality and trying to use things that are of the season, they need to be readily available locally. So we've been doing that in our kitchens. And I think now with all of this, with the supply chain being invariably, redrawn after this, you're going to see a lot more emphasis on that. The products, if they're available, are certainly what we are looking for.
Okay. I wanted to also ask you, a lot of distressed assets will enter the market in the next few months. I don't know if Marriott has had a policy of, taking over, managing them, or would consider this kind of a policy at some level when things settle down. or is it too early to talk about it?
Well, I've heard some of these questions, and I've heard some of these conversations. You know, are there going to be changes to some of this? Maybe there will be. I think look, the way we see it is India is one of the most important markets for Marriott, with the largest number of hotels and rooms in Asia after China. As we come out of COVID, I think there's going to be a sizable slowdown in new build activity, except for one-off resort locations, typically that are driving distance from major cities. So we continue to see through deals that were in active consideration before the crisis, but it's fair to say that the new signing pace will most likely drop.
Okay.
However, as you said, we expect to see that in the coming months on the conversion front, there could be activity both in the managed and franchise space, right? Because we do managed and franchised agreements.
Yeah.
As COVID continues to play out, I think it's logical to expect standalone hotel owners to consider switching to available flags of established operators. Looking to leverage their reputation, the brands, distribution channels, loyalty programs, etc. I think it is realistic to expect a slowdown in new hotels being launched because developers are going to look at conserving cash flows. There is unavailability of construction labor. There are delays in procurement of and deliveries of products as a result of the breakdown in the supply chain. So there is lower demand, but yes, I think there are going to be a few standalone opportunities that will come up for consideration.
Neeraj, what are your learnings as a hotelier, as an individual in this pandemic? You could talk both from the professional and a personal level at possible.
Right. I think, I think when you look at it, there have been probably several. Given the role that I do, I travel quite a bit. Or I have been traveling quite a bit. So not being able to travel is obviously quite a jolt to the system. But look, the reality is we are faced with a challenge that is most people have never seen before. And I think what motivates me today is the desire to see this through. Through all of this, there is the idea that we can learn, adapt, and adjust, and really emerge stronger from all of this. So when you look at what the learnings have been, I think we've learned really to look at how we go about our business. We typically like to go from one place to the other. I've had to use technology available that was already available that probably wasn't being used to the extent it could have been to get around our jobs. We've had to really make sure that when you look at how we structure ourselves, I think on a personal level, I put in a great deal of structure to my day. So even though I don't go to work, I think it's important to put a great deal of structure, to stay very disciplined, and it's really important to take care of your physical as well as mental health through all of this. So that piece I've been able to bring through despite not being traveling and not seeing that. Another important thing is, how do you motivate a team that you are not with all the time? Right. So this is not about getting people into a meeting room or around a coffee. This is about connecting with people, trying to keep them motivated and staying engaged with them through digital means. That's been the other big learning as far as I'm concerned. And I think by the time this is through, there will be a few more learnings for all of us.
Absolutely.